STEM enthusiasts! Welcome back to Kameron's Lab, Dive In, the go-to podcast for STEM students, crafted with passion by one of your own. I'm Kameron, your enthusiastic and ever-curious host. Buckle up for today's insightful episode. Ready to dive in? Hello, so today we'll be speaking with Miss Anna Bulakh. She is the Head of Ethics and Partnerships at Respeecher, and today she's just going to introduce herself a little bit, talk to you guys about what it is to be in security and also privacy, especially in this crazy AI world and what we're dealing with. So hi Anna, thank you for coming today. I'm really excited to be speaking with you.
And it's a great pleasure. So just briefly about myself, I have around 10 years of experience in security and defense policies. Then I transitioned to technologies, was building tech for countering disinformation, and then entered AI space as exactly those technologies as generative AI that affect information securities. And what I have been doing for the past 4 years, it's building internally those mitigation and safety measures in AI-generated tools. Those are deepfakes, visual deepfakes or sound deepfakes. And right now I'm a head of ethics and partnerships in a Emmy award-winning voice cloning technology Respeecher. Behind me is the Emmy award. And I'm also a member of AI committee at the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, so building regulation around AI space as well.
That's so exciting. Thank you so much for speaking with me. For those who don't know, Respeecher is an AI startup they founded in 2018. Their voice cloning technology allows a person to speak in the voice of another particular person. In case you wanted to know, who were some of the cool people that they might have spoken with or worked with, one of them would be Mark Hamil, for me, huge fan. He was the Luke Skywalker voice for The Mandalorian, and also they helped Richard Nixon in the short film titled In the Event of Moon Disaster, where they received an Emmy for that. So that's some of the cool things that they were already doing. But of course, with all these cool things, you get the questions of how are we staying safe? How are we protecting ourselves and also protecting the people working with us? So I guess, Anna, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the security and the policies that Respeecher might have in place to protect actors and things working with you.
Yeah, sure. So we also done Darth Vader voice for Obi-Wan Kenobi. so for all fans. And so yes, the security, and for many startups or those companies that are in middle growth, ethics might not be a classic approach to have it in place. But AI ecosystem is different, and we live already in different, I would say, age of understanding how technology can affect societal security. That's why, I would little bit draw back how we build our security policies. It is about understanding the impact that technology creates for perception of technology, for society, for example, creating any disinformation or manipulative content, how we can stop it and how we can mitigate it. Also, it's about taking on board the projects that can potentially impact a perception of your growing startup or a company, right? So I'm also evaluating the context. So to some projects, I'm saying no. When it's highly sensitive, especially when resurrecting all those people that are not alive anymore, deceased people. And the third level is, of course, protecting of personal data, because AI is, and generative AI, that is, I would say, synthetic media. So terminology around that is, we know about the term deepfake, and we know about terminology synthetic media and then generative AI. So what's the difference? Deepfake is AI manipulated digital content with intent to mislead. Synthetic media is AI generated or AI manipulated content that is that can be used in various industries, and generative AI already includes language models. In all those three, especially deepfake and synthetic media, biometric data is used. What I mean by biometric data, it's my voice, it's samples of my voice, or embeddings of my face to recreate my face. So how do we deal inside of Respeecher is that we always require permission from a person to create his or her voice. And if the person is already deceased, so to require permission from the family members, from estate, or from copyright holders. So that's kind of the basic and the first approach. Then we evaluate the context of a project. If it's a B2B project, we have also launched democratization of technology. So we have a voice marketplace. And in voice marketplace, you have an access to 100 plus voices of people that we have permissions for using their voice. Those are not famous voices. And we have a moderation in place. So it's interesting for a tool, not a platform, to have a moderation. So we do not allow like sexual content, harassment, bullying, and fraudulent content that someone would like say to you, please send money ahead, because voice can be used in many such cases. And of course, the third pillar, so it touches upon like protecting likeness, mitigating that negative use cases, creating negative use cases around the technology and its emerging technology. So we have to be cautious about that. And the third is, of course, the data governance. How do we store data and how do we use data? So, for example, at Respeecher, we never use our clients' data to train base models. So you have to understand. So if I would like to recreate your voice, Kameron, so we would need from 2 minutes to 30 minutes of your voice recordings. You can do that in, you can record yourself in a studio or just on a phone. We get your data, we train an AI model of your voice. But then we have a base model, that's our core technology. And our core technology is never trained on anyone, any client's voice data. And that is exactly where AI is heading, is about, of course, protecting personal data and being really transparent how this personal data is used.
Okay, wow. It's all very exciting. It's a lot to think about, especially for people that maybe haven't heard of it before, especially this whole perspective of taking care of our data. I feel like the narrative right now in the news and everything is that AI is taking over and it's very dangerous. Be careful out there. Like they're taking our voice. How do you deal with, I guess, navigating that kind of narrative for people when they come to you saying that they would like to maybe click their voice clone, but they're very concerned about the privacy aspect of it and protecting themselves? I know you mentioned a little bit, but if you could go into a little bit more about navigating that narrative, that negative narrative that we seem to have at the moment.
Yes, so there are two two parallel streams. That is a narrative that is built around technology, and there is something that we do in self-regulatory framework, because we have to understand that regulation around AI does not exist yet. So the first ones might be AI Act in European Union, but it might be delayed. We will see. So for the past years, we've been inside of AI regulatory framework in between companies, and we've been sharing our best practices. And best practices are not just policies and buzzwords. It's about also creating some technical tools to prove that this particular digital file is manipulated or created with AI. So in this space, we are the first synthetic audio company that implemented Adobe-led content authenticity initiative and its standard CTPA for provenance. So we add metadata to all files that are created on our voice marketplace to prove, and that when they travel to other tools that support this standard or other platforms, and it shows and brings more like transparency and understanding for users that this particular file was AI manipulated. So what I'm saying about that is it's about understanding that self-regulation is really useful tool when companies are ready to put some resources, human resources, financial resources, to safeguard their growth. And it's not just corporate responsibility. It's about expanding your life of your product or company in undefined and navigating this undefined space of AI for longer. And what I've said before is that we are the first one who required permission to clone someone's voice, so it's our own best practice. So how we grew and our business is built on high ethical standards that gives us competitive advantage and opens for us doors to the best partners and market players in entertainment industry. So, like, when you would discuss that technology is progressing fast, yes, but but when we understand the threats, we can also progress fast to mitigate them. And it's my approach that I brought from my background in security and defense, that I know how to combat that negative narrative with really practical suggestions, how we can not stop the development of technology, but how we can safeguard it on some steps of its growth.
Very interesting. You mentioned that your background was more in security rather than the technology side. I know there's a lot of students right now that might be focused on, I guess, cybersecurity, or maybe not even in the tech space, but they would like to get into it. Can you talk to us about that transition? How did you go from a background, amazing background, by the way, I looked when I was researching you, into this now, I guess, AI and technology space? How did you go from that transition? What inspired you to do that?
Working in think tanks that affiliated directly to government agencies. I worked around 5 years at International Center for Defense Security in Estonia, and it's a highly digital country. And we worked closely with the government, of course, and we have been tracking and analyzing and understanding what exactly influences social cohesion, what exactly influences national security, international security. And we've seen that technology, and I've seen that technology is a huge part of that, but technology capacity belongs to private sector. So of course, public-private partnerships that drives me all the time, that I bring from that background. But then I decided that for me to achieve this insider perspective, how we can build those privately owned technologies that can be, I would not say responsible, but more aware how they impact some threats, like individual security threats or national security threats.
Right.
With this knowledge, you can build really great framework inside of a company. Policymakers, researchers, academia, other companies, and again, it's not about influence. It's about understanding of your impact and how you can grow fast while you actually preserve the trust in technology. So I think the understanding of impact, that's what I brought from my background, is the most important thing.
Thank you. I'd also like to ask, I'd like to ask this question. If you were to give your younger self advice about how to get where you are today, so that students that are currently, I guess, in high school or still thinking about it in university, thinking, where do I want to go and how do I get there? If you could give your younger self advice on how to get to where you are now, what would you say?
I would say that what brought me here today is to be multidisciplinary, is to look, for example, okay, my background, international relations, economic theory, international security, and diplomacy. So all those spheres that give you really high-level understanding of a world, of a society. But it's really important for you just to broaden all the time your spectrum of where you can apply your knowledge, because you can take one framework, for example, I took from security and defense, and apply it in technological and tech sphere. So it's not about where you exactly focused right now. It's about this decisions and fear sometimes that we can get to transition to another sector. But believe me, transitioning, it does not mean that you're cutting your ties to your previous background. Because right now, for example, I'm still in I'm in AI committee in Ministry of Digital Transformation, so I'm still close to the policy making, and my background in policy making, in security defense, and being in technological spectrum, so you can always combine your soft skill, hard skills together, but it's about process. And what brought me also here, it's really great opportunities of meeting great people at summer schools, nature-driven summer schools, and actually where I fell in love with security and defense. It was like around 15 years ago. So I highly encourage you to go and to change your environment for like, for example, for intensive 1-2 weeks. And for me, that time it was NATO summer schools when I met those brilliant minds from defense. And defense, it's interesting field because it's not just about hardware, right? That driving in military field. It's about the frameworks and approach, how you build strategies. And this particular experience also helped me a lot.
Very exciting. Thank you so much for that advice. I like the idea of going to summer school. Like for myself, whenever I try to go to conferences and things, that's why I try to meet people like yourself to get more experience and to get just to broaden my horizons a little bit. So I think the idea of a 2-week intensive would be pretty good. I wish I had that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and especially when the summer schools are mixing students from different fields, from different backgrounds. And just to highlight that, there is a good book by Brad Smith, Tools and Weapons. And it's about exactly highlighting that if you want to drive a technological ecosystem into a better place, we have to combine knowledge of humanitarian studies and technologists together. And how we can do that is, of course, to bring everyone in the same room, to bring new lectures or new like curricula to universities. But it's not only about that. It's about like also technologists that want to expand their knowledge and look, for example, read some books on geopolitics, read some books on national security, read some books on privacy, read some books on philosophy. There's a huge amount of information that you can imply and build your own frameworks that you can be not just unique, but you can bring this kind of new sense of understanding into a future company or into your office, etc.
We've heard a lot about these technologies developing, and also you want it to be protective, I suppose, of the people that are developing the technologies without stifling them, without stifling this innovation. How would you say that, I suppose, innovation and regulation go hand in hand? I know you already mentioned a lot about communication being very important, but is there anything else you would say is helpful?
The really helpful is the experience that we achieved in AI tech ecosystem for the past 4 years, that we managed to build some really productive self-regulatory initiatives. For example, that is Content Authenticity Initiative, Partnership on AI. And to avoid over-regulation is for companies to show that on voluntary commitments, they can deliver some know-hows how to safeguard the technology. So, and it's first, of course, voluntary commitments and companies, not just for PR purposes, but really delivering the resources to new standards, because policymakers will never develop new standards, like, for example, watermarking of digital content or adding metadata. That's industries that would have to be solving that at first. Second is to provide sandboxes and the testing environment for companies to test the foundation models. And something where we in Ukraine are driving our regulation is to dedicate ourselves for the upcoming 1-2 years to inspire companies and to support companies to come into more self-regulatory framework and to support them with guidelines. Specific guidelines, for example, where your AI model can be used and not, and go to the sandbox that will be provided from ministry that you can run your model and understand how it's compliant or not, and then you can release your product on markets that you understand that requires that compliance. So it's not just about like, you know, signing some voluntary commitments. It's about doing the technical work that can support them. And then, of course, going into regulatory. But just to put top-down regulation on AI won't work today, because we don't know where it goes to. Like, we don't know its limits. We are still, even in private sector, we don't know its limits, so we're experimenting. That's why this kind of public-private partnership is so essential, that policymakers would give us iterations. Okay, you have to provide transparency to synthetic media. Let's work on watermarking. Watermarking, for instance, is highly interesting topic because everyone has been talking for watermarking, but no one has achieved this robust solution that would be invisible and would be robust. So we have to solve it, right? So, and when regulators require that in the AI Act, in the latest draft, that AI-generated content should be labeled, so we need this time for iterations. What can be a new standard for that? And then regulation can include that. So being practical, being realistic, and understanding that we need a space for innovation, but also why voluntary commitments are important, because they impose values, and values in technology are also important, because we do understand in democratic world that technology is a tool and it should not surpass the borders of human rights. And those values should be agreed, of course, and communicated from the policymakers.
Lovely. I like that Respeecher is also thinking about all of these things. There's not a lot of companies that explain, I suppose, in so much detail how they're protecting their clients and also helping to support this innovation in the technology in a safe way. So I really appreciate Respeecher for that. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Really cool. But I wanted to also ask you, just as to kind of close us out, is to ask a little bit more about how, I guess, students can get more involved in this kind of thing. Does Respeecher have anything that students may be able to get involved with? Are there any other companies that you may know of that might be doing something that students can get involved in? Just any final notes or advice for students?
Yeah, actually, I'm taking interns myself. When students are writing me, we are discussing the direction, and I have worked already with several interns that helped in several directions. For example, we have a healthcare direction that I launched in Respeecher. So with our voice cloning technology, we help patients that have undergone, that have throat cancer, laryngectomy patients, and they have undergone voice box removal, and they sound robotic. So we can convert them into healthy sounding voice. And for that direction, I had a huge help of several interns from US, brilliant students. And also, if any students are interested in ethics, how to build it, and ready to help to manage some of those directions on partnerships that we are building, it's always open to that. And I also would encourage you to write to other companies. If you're interested in any other company, just be brave. It's what I've been doing, like, myself that time, just writing and reaching out.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really enjoyed the talk, and I got to learn so much more about the ethics and technology side than I would have otherwise. So I was really happy to speak with you, and I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Hi again, awesome listener. That wraps up another deep dive of Kameron's Lab Dive In. Before you dive back into your day, see what I did there? Take a second to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Want a behind-the-scenes look? Bonus content? Or just some good old STEM fun? Follow me on my socials, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Kameron's Lab. And remember, every episode is a new adventure, and we've got some thrilling dives lined up for you. Don't miss out! Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.